Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Lords of the Fallen. This title was sent to me by CI Games so that I could give it a look and tell you guys my opinions on it. I might have noticed that over the last couple of days you've probably seen quite a bit of gameplay being posted for Lords of the Fallen, as well as a lot of live streams being broadcasted. And the reasoning behind that is because content creators were given early access to the game, and we were also allowed to share the beginning of the game with you guys. In my case, you will have already seen that there's currently 3 live streams on the channel, and the last 2 live streams are actually going to be the beginning part of my playthrough series where I'm going to be going through the whole game blind. Now, currently, I've put in about 30 or so hours into the game. However, those 30 hours have been spent exclusively exploring the beginning 8 hours or so of the game with different characters, trying out different builds, different spells, all of that stuff, because that is the information that we're allowed to share with you guys at this point, and I want to save the rest of it for my full-on playthrough where I'm going to be live streaming for your enjoyment. Now, today's video is going to be me focusing on my experience with the game so far and telling you guys how I feel about it. Now, one of the first things that I got to bring up is the copy that I was given access to is a PC copy, and I've ran into a couple of problems because unlike most content creators, I have an AMD GPU that is a 6900 XT. And turns out there's been a couple of issues with the early access version of the game. Now, it is important to mention that this is the early access version, and to give you guys an idea, the team patched the game not once, but twice. Last weekend, okay? During the weekend, they applied 2 patches to the game. So the team is working relentlessly to hopefully fix some of the problems that I've personally been having with AMD, and I've been reporting all of the bugs and all of that stuff, and hopefully we'll see some of this stuff sorted out. But you might notice if you watch those live streams that I've had a couple of crashes. And one of the occasions on the very first live stream, I actually got my save file corrupted. But since the recent patches that they've applied to the game, nothing like that ever happened again. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that problem should be fixed so that nobody else will have to experience that. But, you know, rest in peace, Bucket Man. You'll be sorely missed. That was my first character. But since then, I've been playing the game. I've been experimenting with different things, and I have quite a few things to say. So number one, when it comes to, and again, this is all based off of the PC version, when it comes to performance, your mileage may vary. Like I've heard from people that have NVIDIA GPUs, that their performance is actually being a lot better. In my case, with the AMD GPU, it's like, it's a little bit on the unstable side. Like you can get 60 FPS pretty consistently, but going above that is going to be swapping between like 90, 70, 80, depending on which zone you're at. And fiddling with the graphical settings didn't really seem to do that much. So, you know, you're looking at potentially solid 60 if you have like a decent enough GPU for it. But, you know, in my case, like I said, I have a 6900 XT and I have a Ryzen 9 5900X processor. And I have the game running on an NVMe drive. All of that stuff kind of feel like that's the ideal condition of what you want to have. Also 32 gigs of RAM for those of you wondering. So, you know, the game does run well enough. But initially, before they applied the first couple of patches, I did have a couple of issues. But hopefully they'll fix some of that stuff up so that it gets a little bit better. We'll see. I'll be reporting on it later down the line when we're allowed to share more information about the game. When I actually play more, I'll eventually do a full-on review and all that. But if you're somebody who's concerned about your hardware or, you know, anything like that, or if you have an AMD GPU, at this point, my recommendation would be hold off, wait until reviews come out, and, you know, maybe watch the Digital Foundry video, which I'm sure they'll probably be doing something, at least I would hope so, and maybe then you'll be able to make a more informed decision. That would be my recommendation at this point when it comes to performance, hardware, all of that jazz. Now, when it comes to the visuals themselves, I think that the game looks pretty good. However, sometimes I even feel like they've gone for such amount of detail. There's a lot of detail in every single situation that you can see. And what that means is that the YouTube algorithm is going to have a hard time processing that, because I've seen a lot of people in my live stream saying, oh my god, the game doesn't look good, and I'm like, are we looking at the same game? Like, I don't understand what's going on. And I think that the YouTube compression algorithm is going to be a bit of a problem, simply because of the sheer amount of detail that the game has. And very early on, you go through a stage where it's raining, and anybody who knows anything about video, you know that whenever there's raining and there's any form of compression happening, everything goes to crap, okay? So a lot of the footage that you're going to be watching on YouTube is not going to be a very good representation of the visual quality of what you will experience in the final product. So do keep that in mind. YouTube compression is going to be a thing. I think that the visuals, like I said, I think they look pretty good. I think that the animations look pretty good, even though I will say that some animations feel a little bit floaty. And it's been an interesting thing, because I've seen a lot of people say online, including Cabo. Cabo's like, I don't understand what you guys say when you mean floaty, so I'm going to try and be a little bit more specific. When you roll with your character, you'll notice in the gameplay footage that I'm showing in the background, I'm sure that there will be some rolling going on. You'll notice that the roll in this game is very generous, gives you quite a bit of reach. And I feel that that animation sometimes feels floaty when you are rolling, or when enemies are closing the gap to you in order to, you know, get to you and hit you with an attack. It feels a little bit floaty. And as a matter of fact, I would argue that at the beginning, you know, at the beginning of the game, when you're first starting to play it, I would even say that it feels a little bit clunky. But the thing is, that feeling goes away fairly fast, because on my first live stream, you can see that I'm kind of like struggling. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand what's going on. And there's a bit of an adaptation period, I feel like, when it comes to this game. And this is where the conversation of clunky / floaty kind of comes from. And once you go through that adaptation period, what I can tell you is that the combat feels really fun. Okay? I know that you're going to be looking at the gameplay and you're like, oh, I don't know, your dodge goes so far and the enemies kind of zoom in and almost like a magnet towards you sometimes, depending on the enemy that you're talking about. And I can tell you that for me, at this point, all of that stuff doesn't even feel that, doesn't even disrupt my gameplay experience that much. It just feels good. It feels natural, because I've acclimatized, is that the proper word? Whatever. I've acclimated to the rhythm and the flow of the game, and it actually feels pretty nice. And the cool thing is that once you get used to the combat, exploring the game is extremely fun. I cannot stress enough how fun these levels are, at least the ones that I've experienced so far. Like I said, it's only been like 8 hours in, give or take, with the Umbral exploration mechanic. Because if you've been following the game in any capacity, you'll be aware of the fact that in this game, there are essentially two worlds. There's the world of Axiom, which is the world of the living, and there's the world of Umbral, which is, I guess, the world of the dead, kind of. But what happens is, whenever you die, you go to Umbral, and you have essentially a second life. And then there's even mechanics in the game that allow you to go back to Axiom. And the cool thing is, they hide stuff in Umbral, so it kind of requires you to pay attention. You pull out your lantern, and you look around, and you're like, oh, there's some hidden secret in here or something. And there's a lot of stuff to explore and treasures to discover by just exploring the two different worlds. And the way in which they do puzzles, where you go from Axiom to Umbral, and then you find like some secret. Sometimes you are required to go into Umbral in order to progress through the level, because like you get to a point and you just feel like, oh, there's a dead end. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. You shift into Umbral, suddenly there's a bridge or there's something you can interact with. And it feels nice. And it's interesting because initially I was thinking to myself like, oh, this is going to be a pain to explore, because there's these two worlds and I'm always going to be feeling like I'm missing out on something. And let's face it, we're going to be missing out on stuff first playthrough, unless you're watching like a walkthrough or something. On your first playthrough, you're probably going to be missing out on some stuff, but the sense of discovery that you're going to be getting whenever you find something new is very satisfying. And they're actually pretty smart about giving you hints as to when something can happen in the Umbral realm, because they give you like these little butterflies that show up, and you're like, oh, there's butterflies there. That means that there's probably something I can interact with in the Umbral realm. Or sometimes, you know, your lantern will start flashing on the HUD, which is on the lower right-hand side Your lantern will start flashing, indicating, hey, there's something here. You might want to place down a vestige or something, which is kind of like a temporary bonfire that you can do. And there are other indications of like, hey, there's stuff. Like the lantern glows, sometimes your controller vibrates, sometimes there's some eerie sounds, and you start understanding, oh, there's stuff in here that I should pay attention to and maybe check out Umbral. And a really cool mechanic in the Umbral realm that I was very surprised the first time it happened, because I think they say in the promotional material that can happen, but I didn't watch all the promotional material. So I was looking with my lantern, looking around. I was in Axiom Realm, which is Realm of the Living, and I was just looking around into the Umbral realm, trying to figure out, oh, is there maybe a puzzle piece here? Is there something that I need to figure out? And an enemy, because you can see the enemies that are on the Umbral side, the enemy walks up to me, slaps me across the face, pulls me into Umbral, and I was like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. I didn't know you could do that. That sounds like some cheating. So that was pretty cool. It was an interesting moment, and yeah, there's a lot of neat stuff about the Umbral, and initially I thought that it was going to be a pain in the ass, and again, this is just based on the initial 8 hours. Things can get a little bit more annoying further ahead, I don't know. But from what I've played so far, the integration of both worlds is actually done really well, and it feels very satisfying to explore or to find out a puzzle or something like that. And keep in mind, if you're a completionist, this is going to be a bit of a nightmare because trying to figure out both things, but it is going to give you a lot of reasons to revisit levels, explore different sections, and figure out different stuff, which I personally think is a good thing. Gives you a little bit of Soul Reaver vibes if you guys ever played that game, which is it's something that a lot of people are bringing up. And as a huge fan of Soul Reaver back in the day, yeah, dude, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I like it. So, besides that, how about the combat? Okay, combat is, like I said, pretty fun. In the beginning, there is an adaptation period that I would definitely say is going to take some people, like for me, it took me quite a few hours to kind of like get used to the overall flow of combat. But once you get used to it, I feel like the combat feels pretty good. And the interesting thing is the way in which they do ranged combat. So very much like other Souls-likes, you can equip a bow or a crossbow or something like that for your ranged weapon, but you can also equip throwable weapons, which is also something that you have in other Souls-likes, right? But the interesting thing that they have here is that you get like a special gauge, which works almost like your mana. So whenever you're equipping something, you have 3 places to put offensive weapons on, so to speak. So the first slot is going to be your main hand. Second slot is going to be your second, your left hand or your offhand, whatever you want to call it. And then the third slot is going to be your ranged weapon. And your ranged weapon can either be a throwable thing, like I said, or it can also be a spell focus, right? So you can put in your spellcasting item on there, and that will automatically shift some of the UI even to indicate, okay, so you now have a spellcasting item here. So we're going to show you your mana on your ranged thing, or if you have a throwable weapon, it'll show like it'll show how much ammunition you have left for that specific weapon. And the gameplay footage you guys are going to be watching, there's going to be a mana gauge because I was trying out a spellcasting character because I haven't really done a lot of spellcasting. As you can imagine, I don't usually do that much spellcasting to begin with. But yeah, on that one, there's a mana gauge which dictates how many spells I can cast and all of that good stuff, right? But I find that really cool because, say for instance, if you're using a spellcasting item, you can equip up to 4 spells, I believe, and those 4 spells are always available to you. It's not like, like in usual Souls, you have to click up and down on the D-pad to select which spell you want to be using, besides just, having the spells prepared and all of that stuff. In here, you equip the spells, and then you can even swap the spells midway through your through the level. You're just like, oh, I feel like swapping out these spells. Just swap out the spells for different spells, so long as you have mana to cast them. And then so long as you have mana, you can use those spells. So whenever you bring up your spell icon, spell tool, you're basically pressing the left trigger. So you hold the left trigger and you can press, let's say, Your R1 or right bumper, you can press the right trigger, and that's going to be a different spell. So R1 would be one spell, R2 would be another spell, and then I forget what are the other two keys, but there's two more keys. That would be two more spells, and depending on which one you press, you have access to all of them. So you can effectively just go like, I don't know, imagine that you have like Fireball on one and then Lightning Spear on the other, and you can go like Fireball, Lightning Spear, Fireball, Lightning. You don't even have to swap it up, which I find to be really cool. This is also neat in case you're using throwable stuff, because the throwable stuff regenerates very much like your mana. So instead of having to, say, buy a bunch of, I don't know, throwing knives or whatever, you have your throwing knives, and then whenever you rest at a bonfire, they replenish your throwing knives automatically, and you're ready to go into the range stuff. I really like the way that they're handling the ranged attacks, even though I don't use that much ranged myself. I don't know how people are feeling in regards to the spell casting, but it seems really interesting from what I've seen so far. The fact that you're able to just have like 4 spells available to you and you can just cast them willy-nilly, that's kind of cool. There's also combat mechanics involving the lantern itself, and where you can rip out your enemy's souls and do all of these crazy things with it, even though I haven't really been using a whole lot of those. There's a specific mechanic to get rid of parasites that enemies can get and whatnot. All of this is going to be covered on a beginner's guide that I'm going to be posting tomorrow, so look forward to that if you guys are curious. But yeah, overall the combat I feel is very satisfying. There's also dual wielding straight off the bat, so you can just equip a weapon on your main hand and another weapon on your offhand, and you're instantly power stancing those two weapons, assuming that you have, you know, the required stats to actually use them. And weapons also have like this special attack that you can do, which is like a multi-hit type of attack, which is also interesting. But I think that a lot of people that really enjoy dual wielding are probably going to enjoy the stuff that you can do in this game, because very early on in my first playthrough, I was already using dual wielding just out of curiosity. And I think that they're doing some interesting things there. But again, I'm going to need some more time to really have an opinion on it, but so far all of that stuff is looking pretty good. So overall feeling on the game is, like I said, I think that for a lot of people this is going to have an adaptation period, and during that adaptation period you're going to be like, this combat feels weird, it feels clunky, it feels floaty. Once it clicks, and it actually clicked reasonably fast for me, once it clicks, you're going to be like, oh no, this is actually pretty fun. At least for me, that's the way that it's gone so far. And I've been pretty much having a blast, apart from the fact that I lost my initial save. That kind of sucked. But apart from that, I've been playing now a spear class. That's been interesting. Been learning a lot about the game's combat. So, yeah, I'm curious to seeing more of the game when the next embargo lifts and I'm allowed to actually live stream some more for you guys. Hopefully you guys will join me in my live stream for more of that. And then once we actually finish the game, I'll be making a full-on review. I'll also be trying to see if I can convince Cowboy to get together for a podcast to talk about the game, because I believe that at this point he's already finished the game, because that man is a goddamn machine. But, you know, as always, all that good stuff, right? So, yeah, I'm curious to see more of it. We'll see if it is worth it or not. I have a lot of people that were asking me about, oh, Rurikhan, how does it compare to Lies of P? And it's actually interesting because Ziostorm has actually made a video specifically comparing this with Lies of P. In my opinion, these are two very different games, because Lies of P, like I've already mentioned in both my review as well as like you know, the subsequent videos that I've done, Lies of P kind of wants you to focus more on parrying, and the dodge in Lies of P is not very good. This game has both of those mechanics. You can parry or you can dodge. You can also block, but you do get a little bit punished for blocking, because most of the shields that I've found so far in the game, at least, even like medium-sized shields, they block very low percentage of damage. And as a matter of fact, it's an interesting thing, because that percentage of damage is then affected by how much armor you actually have equipped, which means that if you're naked with a shield, you're going to take more damage than that same shield, but you're also wearing armor. So there's a decent chunk of chip damage that comes through whenever it comes to blocking. However, you can recover that damage, which is interesting because it's also a mechanic that they used in Lies of P. If you block in Lies of P, you take chip damage, but you can recover it. This game does that too. The difference is, in Lies of P, you wouldn't take damage if you did perfect parry, and in this game, you still take a little bit of damage when you do a perfect parry, which is, it's such a weird choice. It's like, bro, I already did a perfect parry. Why do I gotta still take damage? But the thing is, if you perfect parry often, you're gonna be able to break posture, which is also a mechanic in this game. Once you break an enemy's posture, you can deal a lot of damage, recover a lot of your health, so long as you don't take more damage while you're risking. So there's a lot of risk rewards mechanic here. But the thing is, in this game, you don't have to parry if you don't want to. You can just dodge everything. As a matter of fact, I've done the first major boss of the game both ways. As in, like, the first time that I did that boss, I was basically dodging every single attack she did. Second time I did that boss, I went for the parries, and I parried most of the attacks. And interestingly enough, I enjoyed the parry run much more, because the thing is, one of my complaints when it came to Lies of P was that actually a lot of the patterns that the bosses had were completely unpredictable, and a lot of them even felt downright unfair because they were just so fast and had almost no wind-up. From the bosses that I've done so far, there's a significant amount of wind-up and telegraphs that let you know when the hit is coming, which means that parrying feels much more satisfying than, because you can kind of like, oh, here comes the hit, I'm going to go for the parry. Thing is, if you parry enough, you're going to be able to break gauge, and it's going to feel really good when you get to do what they call in this game a grievous strike. There's also running attacks that are pretty neat that they do in this game, because like can do running heavy attacks, and the running heavy attacks with a lot of weapons are going to be almost jumping attacks. There's plunging attacks just like you have in most Souls-likes, but yeah, overall, I'm having fun with it. I kind of like the setting of the game. I think the setting is pretty neat. I mean, I played the original Lords of the Fallen, I liked it, but it's just the overall feel that you get from the world feels interesting. Even if sometimes I find myself, when it comes to just the sheer amount of visual detail, I almost go like, man, I wish there was maybe a little bit less visual detail, because stuff is so detailed sometimes that I have trouble identifying where the enemies are. I know, maybe that's just my age, whatever. But again, not really a complaint or anything. It's just something that I find interesting. But either way, I know that there's going to be a lot of split opinions on this game. My recommendation is, if you are split on it, don't get it. Wait for reviews. That would be my recommendation. But for me, like I said, after that adaptation period, been having a blast with it. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, hit it up with a like, subscribe, bell notification icon, all of that jazz. Tomorrow I'm going to be dropping my beginner's guide for this game, which is coming in well ahead of release. That way you guys can like get ready and see what all of the nitty gritty of what the combat is like. Like, I go super in depth into what the combat is like in the game. So yeah, that's going to be it for now. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.